You're listening to Resist and Restore, a podcast from the
Circle of Hope Bastards. Don't lose it.
Where we're extending the table of our... Should I start over?
No, just keep going.
No, I think it's good.
We're trying to extend the table of our dialogue. I'm Jonny Rashid.
I'm Rachel Sensenig.
I'm Julie Hoke.
And I'm Ben White.
You know, and I can't even remember the last time we recorded this podcast in person. It feels like it's a pandemic podcast, but there was a time, what appears to be a decade ago, where we met in the same room to record it, and now we've just adjusted to this. Do you think we'll go back to the other thing?
No.
This is it. So there are some parts of our life that are going to stay on Zoom.
Wait. Rachel's like, what? Them's fighting words.
Yeah, I really want to go back to doing it in the same room together when we can. That was fun.
Yeah, but it's so nice to just do it here in my bedroom. I'm just going to curl up in this bedroom and die here.
Really? You're not sick of the bedroom? Wow.
You know, I think that we will adapt to a life where we're in person more, but we also realize that sometimes a Zoom meeting is just as effective as an in-person meeting, and then you don't have to park.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is more convenient in many ways. You guys are right.
And sometimes that convenience pays, but, you know, it is better to be together, you know. And we'll get into some of that on the show, figuring out, you know, where's the joy coming from? Where is the joy? We'll tell some stories about that. But we're going to begin with some talkback.
And we'll end with some spiritual show and tell.
Yeah,
don't forget that. Listen to the whole episode, y'all.
Yeah, it's only like 45 minutes. Well,
Come on.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, we just started, so who knows how long it'll be, but I predict it will be that long.
All right, so let's start with some talkback. We've been passing the mic around our community at our online Sunday meeting because we know that the many parts of our body make us into the beautiful whole that we are. So whole, W-H-O-L-E, not like the Courtney Love band. You like that deep cut, Jonny? You know who whole is?
I like it's a good reference.
Mm-hmm.
I have to ask my younger millennial friend about whole to see if he remembers that.
I know who Courtney Love is relative to Kurt Cobain because I'm a student of history, not because I experienced it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, come on.
You're calling every Gen X person
old?
Very old,
because
Jonny.
you are old.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm not. I love Gen X. I love Boomers. I love every generation. I'm now very generational inclusive. I stopped saying that. No more mocking.
Rachel is very identitarian about her Gen X-ness too. Like she believes in her generation.
In the conflict between millennials
Somebody
and Boomers.
has to.
In the conflict.
Okay, wait a second. We're doing a talkback, and I was talking about Pete McDaniels, who I think he's a millennial, and that doesn't really matter. I don't know, maybe it does if it matters to him. Now I'm being very relativistic. Anyways, he was speaking at our online meeting, and he was talking about Ephesians 4 and speaking the truth in love, and how different situations encouraged or discouraged him to be smaller than he actually was. We're working with anti-racism a lot these days because the movement across the whole country is big, and we don't want it to fade out as the national election rises and the news media stops talking about it. We're going to keep talking about anti-racism forever. We just approved our map, which is pushing us.
What an accomplishment.
Yeah, it just happened. Check out circlehope.net/discernment to know what I'm talking about. But it's basically marching orders for our whole church for a year, and anti-racism is at the front of it. So anyways, we're still talking about it. And Pete was leading us to think about it because he's a black man and has had some experiences with the police that made him feel small, and experiences with other groups of people, a family that loves him, that did the opposite. And you'll have to go to circlehope.net/online meeting to hear his story, because it really is compelling, and his vulnerability kind of just, you know, it's hard not to speak love into that situation, because of course you're going to love Pete when you see him. But we were asking more questions about it because, of course, a talk at the Sunday meeting pushes us towards dialogue, and we have talk back. And so this is one of the questions that we thought maybe we all could answer, or we could keep it going because someone asked it on one of our listservs. We have many listservs for dialogue, by the way. What encouragement from God? This is the question, okay? Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Definitely.
What encouragement from God do you find when you come against the tendency to become or stay small?
I've been thinking about this in terms of the church, not just in the pandemic, but since Trump was elected, I think there's been this extra temptation to kind of shrink down out of sheer discouragement. And I think it has even gotten more pronounced in the pandemic, but the temptation to kind of make our lives according to what we can actually control. And so, whether that means like just, fixing up your house or getting into fitness or, there's all these really great things that we can do. So I'm not knocking them, but I think to be limited in our communal options right now is really hard. And I think the church could adapt too much to that and forget that our mission is to include and to expand and to reach out and make disciples of Jesus. So God's been showing me there are ways to still get together with people. I can have dinner in the park with new friends, have a picnic dinner, socially distanced with masks as a way to resist this feeling of shrinking and being small.
One thing that you said right at the beginning of what you were saying, Rachel, about how the temptation to control, it actually kind of feels like it's like a let me get bigger kind of thing, but it's actually let me make my life smaller, right?
Yes, it's very deceptive. Yeah.
So you're trying to think about how I can keep expanding my life and adapt to the situation as opposed to figure out how to control every situation.
Or just like make myself bigger on social media or something. I want to like expand my whole family.
Jonny, how are you encouraged by God when you're tempted to feel small?
I shared this a few weeks ago, but it has impacted me. I really do need to see myself as God sees me. And that does require prayer and contemplative practice and reflection. The idea that God loves me as I am, that might be your whole life project to figure out how to finally internalize that, to be honest with you. If your whole life is coming to an understanding of God's love for you, that's a well-lived life. And I'm trying to get in touch with that because as a person of color, I'm constantly reminded that love needs to come from God because the society around me has failed to love me. And it's even more painful when my friends fall into the same traps. And so when I'm experiencing that, the temptation could be to shrink myself. But there's another temptation about, it's a different kind of smallness, but it's kind of matching somebody else, You want to get power. You want to become violent. You want to assert yourself in a way. And sometimes you think, it's not fair because we have all these people around who are, oppressing me. When do I get a chance to do that too? There is definitely that temptation. And in order to get out of trying to shrink myself or unnecessarily grow myself, I really have to become intimate with God to right size myself. And it's the perfect size. God makes me whole. And I need to rely on that. And really, if you want to fight racism, you do need the peace of Christ in you. I really believe that. I mean, I don't know how to do it without it because the world is so frustrating. It's so incomplete. It's so damned, if you will, that I need salvation. I need something more so that I can have any hope of being able to articulate a new thing in a new way. It's too discouraging to do it alone.
Yeah, I think that Pete was bringing that hope to his storytelling because he had this experience with the police that made him, he was so acutely aware that he was making himself small. And the opportunity of that moment as he saw it was to notice, oh, I'm making myself small. How often do I do this? All the time. In this extreme circumstance, it's very evident that I'm making myself small. And now I know what that feels like. And so he started to look for it elsewhere. And so I think that one of the things that to kind of twist it on its head a little bit, or I don't know, but to just bring some gratitude to the insight, even if it's a humiliation and an unjust humiliation, when we feel small, knowing what it feels like to feel small or just being, like I said, acutely aware of what's happening in any moment, it is an opportunity for God to really get into a deeper place with us. And so doing that with God is one of the things that could be an encouragement. And I don't know, I usually need to feel smaller. I'm a white dude, and I'm huge if you don't know me. And I have a pretty big personality. So feeling small for me is, I don't know, probably bringing my own projection onto Pete's story, but that's an opportunity for me. And it could be universal too.
I think I'm always trying to work out how to not feel small and live into who I'm being called to be by God. And I think it helps me. It gives me courage to hear from Pete and other of my friends, particularly who are Black, whose experience to survive, causes them to have to be small to survive. And it gives me courage to realize this is not the same kind of survival. I'm not, as a white person in this society, my smallness is wrapped up in me, and actually to be working on this communal project together as the church in particular. I want to live into my fullness so that my friends who are people of color don't have to make themselves small in order to survive in the world or in the church in particular. So I'm going back to something I think you and Jonny both said about prayer. That is a place for me that I need to keep coming back to work out the ways that I do feel small and to receive something from God in order to get over myself. I really do need to get over myself. And that the message actually from Jesus is that my smallness is bigness. My weakness, in my weakness, God's strength is made evident and God's Spirit can work. And so that is where my encouragement is that it's not tied up in my capacity. It's not tied up in my weaknesses, getting overcome in my own self-sufficiency, but just in surrender to God and to this mission that I have with you all and with Jesus in the world. That's enough. God's going to keep working.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It reminds us reminds me how you led us last week, Julie, not by might, not by power, but by your Spirit. So
yeah, that's a cool gospel song we sang at the Sunday meeting. So good. Well, thanks for talking back, y'all. Rare opportunity for the pastors to get talk back to the message. Then we'll have another, quote, guest speaker from our body at the Sunday meeting online this coming Sunday at 5 p.m. Join us, please. And if you want to talk back to us about anything on this podcast, please email us at resistandrestorepodcast@circleofhope.net.
I'm so glad that you've tuned in to listen to our show today. It is really great to have a connection and a relationship with you. If you want to talk to us, just email us at resistandrestorepodcast@circleofhope.net. We would love to hear from you. And if you want to support our show, the two ways you can do that are by giving us a positive review wherever you listen to this podcast, subscribing to the podcast, and also sharing money with us at circleofhope.net/sharing. Money helps pay for our communications manager and for the pastors to put on this show and advertise it to other people as well. So I hope it blesses you, and if it does, support us in those ways. A few things that I want to offer to you that may help your spiritual journey are our Sunday meetings. We worship online, circleofhope.net/online meeting at 5 p.m. on Sundays, and we have cells that many of which still meet online. So if you're distant, you can connect that way. Go to circleofhope.net/cells, the circle of 10, where we have little pockets of community. Additionally, I want to direct you to our daily prayer. circleofhope.net/dailyprayer or /dailyprayerdeeper is a way to receive some nourishment for your soul all the time, but I would say especially during this time as we are going through Ken Shigematsu's book, God in My Everything. What Ken is doing is showing us how we can carve out space in our life to have a rule that helps us have a sense of spirituality. Because in our busy life, in this pandemic life, we can be overtaken by all of the needs and demands that are put upon us. And Ken is trying to help us create a rule that breaks us out of kind of the domination even that we experience by the world around us. It's helping us to have a disciplined life, which I really think if you want to have a spiritual life, a disciplined life, a Jesus-following life, these rules really help. So go to circleofhope.net/daily prayer or daily prayer deeper to track along with us. And there'll be more for you to connect with as you visit those sites too. So thanks again for listening.
Okay, this next segment is called Got Any Joy? We're looking for the joy because there's a lot of other reasons that we could despair. And we've heard it, people are experiencing this pandemic in lots of ways, some very devastating ways. So we're spending some time considering, is there any joy in the midst of this? And how are you finding it? Pastors, tell us a story. Help us look for joy.
All right, so my joy story is I was mistaken to be a bear twice this week.
People really thought you were a bear?
Two separate groups of people, one solo person and then a pair, both thought I was a bear.
And how did you know they thought of you as such?
Because they were like, oh shit, I thought you were a bear.
Oh man, that's so
You're not
scary.
talking about Jersey, are you, Ben?
No,
Yeah, where were you?
I was in New Jersey. I was on Mount Tammany, which is in New Jersey, in the Delaware Water Gap on the Jersey side. And I was hiking what's that trail called? I can't remember the name of the creek, but it's the Something Berry Creek Trail, headed up to Sunfish Pond, which is this glacial lake that got carved out of the Kittatinny Ridge way back in the last ice age. And it's cool to have something glacial in the Appalachian Mountains because they're mostly just worn down old men. Nothing like the mountains of the West, but there are mountains. They're my mountains, the Appalachians. And so I was it was early in the morning. I went early to hike by myself. And I had eaten so many Doritos that I was just kind of kicking my own butt. I turned on the like mile tracker app that I have on my phone, and it would tell me every mile how fast I had gone. And it surprised me every time, by the way. It was like suddenly like this robot was talking to me, completed 3 miles, average speed, and it was like, what's going on? Is that a bear? Because you're in the middle of nowhere. You're definitely in the mountains, and it is bear country. There are lots of bears up there. And so when I came hauling up the hill behind the first woman, clattering across these rocks because it's a real rocky trail, I came around a bend and she was kind of in this kind of ninja stance, just waiting for me. Because there's something huffing and puffing, snorting and clattering behind you, and she's like, "Oh, I've never hiked alone by myself before, and I thought I wasn't sure if you weren't a bear." And then I passed her because I was kicking ass, and I got to this other place where another trail was coming in, and I heard these guys. They were talking to each other, which is the right thing to do, by the way, in bear country, to be loud so that you don't surprise the bears. And had I been a bear, they would have been fine because they were talking. But when I came around the corner, they were like, I thought you were a bear. And I just thought that was so funny because it was two different people within the span of a half an hour who thought I was a bear. And I resemble a bear more than most humans, I think.
You are bear-like.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely berry.
You're berry.
So that's some joy, is being mistaken for a bear and being in a place where I might be a bear. That was the beauty of it. And getting to this place that's kind of off the beaten track. It's you have to walk about 6 miles to get to Sunfish Pond. There's no parking lot that allows you to view it close up. So that was an accomplishment. And then I went around it and went up to Mount Tammany. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful place to be on the Kittatinny Ridge. And I bought some trail maps because I decided that I'd hike all the trails on the ridge. That's my plan now. I covered 10 miles of them on that day, so I'm going to now cover the rest of them eventually soon.
Ben, that is so you to make that as your goal, all the trails on the ridge. My story of joy is also coming partly from nature. I have a little herb garden in my backyard, and when I say backyard, what I really mean is like
back slab.
Like, yeah, it's probably like 3 square yards of
Concrete.
Concrete. Yeah, absolutely. So it's
South
really
Philly.
a far cry from the woods I grew up in. Yes, it is beloved South Philly. And I'm obviously so happy to be in the city. I don't want to live in the woods anymore, but it makes me feel like I have this little treasure, this little piece of the woods to have herbs growing back there. All the meals that I cook, I try to make them as herby as possible, because I have a lot of different kinds of herbs and they're all doing very well. And so my family doesn't really like this as much as I do, but I load tons of herbs into all the food or on top of the food. And my favorite is the nasturtium, is an edible flower, and you can even put the leaves in salads. It has kind of like a citrusy flavor. And so I have been getting a lot of joy out of like actually eating flowers. It just like tastes like the earth. And I even love that my family they don't actually want to eat the flowers. And so they're like, Mom, you can have my flowers. And so I get to eat all these beautiful flowers. And it's been kind of feeding my soul to do that.
Give me all the flowers.
Yes.
What color are the flowers?
They're like an orangey red, which is like my favorite color.
It's good for the look of the salad too.
Totally.
My kids love eating lemon clover. The leaves of the clover taste like lemon.
And you clover?
Yeah, you can eat clover, really?
Yeah,
totally.
Oh
The nasturtium leaves tastes kind of like that, Joel.
How do you think people are discovering what you can eat? You think they're just eating things and seeing?
No, my kids learned that at an outdoor camp where they went through the arboretum and the campers learned about all these edible plants.
But there was a trial and error period. At some point, someone's guessing.
Yeah,
in time immemorial, I think we unlearned it. Like we used to know what you ate because you had to eat everything that grew that was edible, or you would die.
Yes, and it's a wonderful field of study. When I was little, I used to make tea out of the poison sumac, and the tea you can ingest it. It's beautiful and it's delicious, but you can't. But it will give you a rash on your skin if you rub it all over your body. So it's really fascinating.
Aren't you always nervous you're going to spill it?
No, I don't know. That never happened, Johnny.
Once you wait a second. If I'm drinking poison sumac tea, I'm definitely going to spill it on myself.
Once it's tea, it doesn't cause the same reaction.
Right. You would have to rub the flowers all over you.
Okay, I am very allergic to poisonous things: poison oak, poison sumac, poison ivy. I get it real bad.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, my story of joy is about getting lost in a task. Actually, my family went away for the weekend, and I had in my mind, actually on and off for years, I've wanted to paint the French doors in our house that go to the front room that used to be it's like an enclosed porch. When we bought our house, we painted everything except for those French doors. They were like a light brown color and they weren't in too bad of shape. And, once you paint and paint and paint, you get tired of painting. So we just never painted the doors, but they look bad. It's 12 years later. And they've never been painted. And so I had in mind this would be a project for the pandemic, but haven't had any time for those kinds of projects until they went away. And so it was late Friday night and I just got motivated. I'm like, I'm going to do this.
I love it when that happens.
Right? But I wasn't prepared. I didn't prepare to do this project. And so I went down to my garage and I went through our cabinet. We have all this paint left over from when we first bought the house and painted, because we had no idea how much paint it took to, paint the walls in our house. And we have a tiny little 1,010 square foot house. So we bought way too much paint. So I'm thinking there's got to be some in here that I can use. And the first can I opened, the top of the paint was covered in mold. Not
What?
surprising. Well, right.
Mold.
It was surprising because I didn't know paint could mold, but it was, it's 12 years old. So I'm like, well, I guess that's what happens. Yeah. But there was not to be deterred. I just kept opening cans until I found one that was still good. And so I was really excited. And we had labeled the top, so I knew which colors I had used for the trim. And so I dug out a paintbrush that was still good and all the other supplies. And I started painting. And I worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all the free time that I had. I was just painting these doors. And once I finished them, it was so satisfying. I just kept going. I looked around the room, like the front room, there's portions of the windowsills that were like worn off because my kids used to drive little matchbox cars back and forth on them. So I painted the windowsills, and then I painted the radiator cover that's all scratched up too from years of tossing things on there when we come in and out the door. And I moved things away from the walls and started painting the trim along the floor. And it was so satisfying. It nourished my soul to attend to something that had been let go for so long and to like restore it to the original beauty of the wood details in our house. And then my joy was multiplied when they came back and the kids were like, "What? The doors are white." And they appreciated all the work that I did too. So that was a satisfying thing that could be completed. And there was something artistic about it too, even though I wasn't creating a new or imagining a new thing like you would if you're creating art. It took me to a different headspace, and the detail of it was really satisfying.
Yeah, painting is so contemplative. I love it. Did you put painter's tape or any kind of tape on the glass?
I tried at first, and it actually was worse. I do way better with just a steady hand. So
sometimes the painted tape gives you a little bit too much liberty with your, you're a little bit too like, yeah, I got it. So I could just go ham, and then you peel it, it doesn't work. So I went very slowly and carefully. And I think that was part of the meditative practice for me, was just to not rush through.
I do like pulling painter's tape off though. That's very satisfying if it worked.
What about you, Jonny?
Well, in my zoomed up life,
Zoom it up.
Zoom is like the Kleenex of video calls, because no matter what the medium is, you call it Zoom for some reason, even if you know it's not Zoom. Kleenex, Band-Aid, ping pong. I like knowing those things a lot. Anyway, and this is kind of what I'm talking about. The Zoom meeting is too efficient. It's too essential. It's too imminent, you might say. It has too much immediate consequence. And I know I can't really talk very well, so I say that. But what I mean is, you can get into a meeting and then it's just down to business. Here's the agenda. Here's what we're doing. Okay, we're done with this item. Let's move on. And that, I can't live like that. I've never wanted to live like that. I always live I like the tangents, and my team's always containing me in some way that probably benefits the whole. But when I got in this call, for example, it was just me and Julie in the beginning. So then I had recommended her some baking sheets. And I was like, so how are the baking sheets going? Let's talk about that. And she goes, I got to focus on this podcast. But I was ready to talk about baking sheets. I like extending the table of our dialogue. I like extending the conversation all sorts of places. And most notably where I like it is when you can make a joke, because, we're too serious. In Circle of Hope, we say we want everyone to own their dignity, take themselves seriously. I appreciate that. I think that's important to do. But that doesn't mean you can't make a joke. You need to laugh. You need mirth. You need joy. And sometimes you just have to insert it. Like at the end of on Sunday, we had a talkback group after, and we had a very serious discussion about like racism and ableism and all sorts of other things. And I think at the end I said, well, speak now or forever hold your peace. And I said, who even says that at weddings? And who would come to a wedding in order to protest the wedding? Does this happen anywhere but movies? This is what I was, because I've never said that, you know. And also, who holds their peace after? You can continually express your opinion after. And so I got us totally on a tangent.
You did. we talked about that for a while.
But the group kind of, it just lightens it up a little bit. And I think you have to do that, because and I think that kind of joy and that kind of laughter, because it's unnecessary, because it isn't immediately utilitarian. I don't want to overstate this, but I really do think it lays the groundwork for faith to grow, because all of the things that we do in our faith seem to be excessive. So, maybe you're not like going to become St. Paul because you cracked a joke in a meeting, but I think we should do that. I think you should try to make someone laugh, because we're not laughing enough during this time. And that's because there isn't that much to laugh about. So help us, bring the joy.
You know what? Yeah, I heard of this show. I don't know if you know it, that like people, they can have whole conversations just like going back and forth with quotes from this show. Have you ever heard of this guy, Jerry Seinfeld?
Jerry Seinfeld. I have heard of him. I believe he had the best sitcom ever, best thing ever,
For those of you that don't know, that I was trying to insert some mirth on top of your mirth. That was a joke about Johnny's obsession with Jerry Seinfeld.
I like little, I like Seinfeld Easter eggs. Oftentimes when I'm giving a talk or something like that, I add little moments of Seinfeld that only certain people know. It's like a secret code that my other Seinfeld brothers and sisters can identify, and now we're connected in some way. I appreciate that. So that's what's up. You want some more jokes?
That's good. I hope you can find some joy in your day. All of you who are listening, I hope our stories brought some joy to you too.
So the last part of our podcast today is called Spiritual Show and Tell. What's nourishing your soul right now is the question. And we got into that a little bit in the last section, but I think we have more stories to tell. So let's go for it.
So I try to get the kids to do some exercise as a part of their life. We went to the doctor's office and the doctor's telling us they got to eat this, drink that, move around. It's like it's a pandemic. Come on. And I live in a row home, so how much movement can there actually be? But anyway, their school, love school, they give them like videos that they can do activities on. And I'm already kind of suspicious, but one of the videos was they were doing yoga, and now they know what yoga is. My 4 and 7-year-old know yoga, and my comrades here are looking at me because they know that's going to like mess me up in some way, because I don't know about all that. To be honest, and that's all I can say about it. I don't, so I'm just saying, I'm watching the yoga teacher. She's saying namaste and doing interesting things. And my kids are on the floor rolling around. And I thought to myself, this is what worked for me in the moment. I thought, maybe this movement into something that's a little bit more than what is immediate in front of us, beyond what we can see, that maybe even something like yoga does, can tend our souls for something new to be planted in them. I'm thinking about how in 2020 I can help people follow a crucified and resurrected Savior. Can I still do that now? And somehow, in doing something like yoga, or at least watching them do it, my suspicion was curbed a little bit, and I had a little bit more hope for what was possible. And I'm continuing to look for areas where, God might show up in a way that I don't know about yet. And, that helps me. And so the nourishment that I want to share with you is keep looking for those thin places, those places where it doesn't seem, where heaven and earth almost meet, where the rules about how the world works aren't exactly clear. And maybe there you can grow your faith, because I do think, and I'm going to stop saying during this time, because it's been this time for a while, but it is hard to keep and hold your faith. And so let's keep expanding beyond what we think is immediately plausible, because God is a lot bigger than that. And, maybe my kids, by doing this unusual thing, will have more tended hearts for what's to come for them. So I'm just trying to be open about that. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. I've done some yoga.
Yeah, and by the way, I should be more in touch with my body. And I know.
This
You're
is
looking
good.
at me. Get out of your head, Jonny. Stop thinking about yoga.
Right. That's what I was thinking, Jonny. I'm just going to show you some moves whenever we can get together again.
We do it on Zoom.
In person. What else has been nourishing our souls?
All right. Well, Ben talked about the TV show The Chosen a couple weeks ago at our Sunday meeting. So I finally watched the first episode, and I admit it was good. It nourished my soul.
So
And and I won't spoil anything, but the part of it that stayed with me, I wrote down. Jesus was speaking to Mary, and he's quoting Isaiah 43. And
Mary Magdalene, right?
Mary Magdalene, yes, thank you. And the verse is, "But now this is what the Lord says, the one who formed you, who created you. Do not be afraid. I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine."
Mm.
And that scene with her is so powerful. She's running away from him, literally. And after he says this to her, she crumbles. You can see her defenses and her fear melt. And it's just beautiful to see it enacted. And it has stayed with me ever since.
And the formula of the show, we can say, and it demonstrates it in the first episode, is these encounters that Jesus has in the New Testament are these short little, a few verses long, but they tell the story with all of this imagined backstory. What led to this moment with Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just so spot on. I mean, it's like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. I mean, they tell the story so well that you're just sure that, yep, that was exactly how Mary. Of course, and it's all invented. No one knows.
But it's so human.
Exactly.
That's why it's helpful, because it expands our imagination for who these humans were and who we are as these human beings relating to the Son of God.
So good. Well, let's stay on TV for a minute. My spiritual show and tell is called The Midwife. I know I'm late on this, but I finally started watching Called the Midwife, and that's another very Christian show, y'all.
Oh my gosh,
Wow.
I love it so much.
It is very Christian. The first Christmas, apparently now they're only releasing Christmas specials, so you can still get new episodes of Called the Midwife, but they're mostly Christmas specials. Yeah, it goes back to that being human thing, and that's what art can do, is kind of bring out the humanity. And at Christmas time, we're really focused on the incarnation, the humanness of God, and the transformation of humanity because God was born as a vulnerable little human baby. What does that mean? And the first Christmas episode, check it out. It's season 2, episode 1, I think. The Christmas special. I said that it was the best demonstration of what the incarnation meant that I'd ever seen in art.
That's amazing.
Like better than any piece of, timeless classic art, that you would hang on a wall, better than any other movie depiction I'd seen. And Jesus wasn't in it. Mary did not ride on a donkey. Which might make it even more perfect because it's what it looks like in real life among the poor in London in the 50s.
I wept.
Oh, I wept so much. Multiple times during the episode. Perfection.
Wow.
Yes. Okay, this is good. There's a lot of good TV we can watch while we have time to do it. Speaking of time, that's related to what's nourishing my soul, is kind of dividing up my time in a different way. I've been encouraged by Ken Shigematsu's book, God in My Everything. that we're reading together as a church right now. I realized as I was reading it that a lot of my time has been all like my work and time with God has all been kind of mushed together, and my time with my family mushed together in this time, since March in our quarantine. And so recently I've been scheduling like friend time. I took a walk with my good friend Tracy this morning, and I had a date with my husband last night, and I have a retreat scheduled for actual solitude with God for later in the week. And
where are you going for that, Rachel?
I think I'm going to end up at the beach, crashing at my sister's beach house, because my normal retreat spots are not open right now. So I have to change it up a little bit, but I'm going to boundary my time in other ways, like not check my email and things I normally do, so that I can hear God's voice more clearly. And that definitely nourishes my soul. So until next time, I hope that your soul is nourished as well. And I encourage you to write to us, send us your questions, your inspirations, and we can talk about them together on the podcast.